story starts with a blank page. At the top of this one, we have Not Every Shadow is a Ghost, and by J. Wilburn. Got an idea of what I want this story to be, but it's just going to be a matter if I can get those bones down on it in this first draft. So let's see how that goes. I've done a lot. I've done a lot of third person, so I think I'm going to try and write this one first person. It's not my preference, and it's not what's most natural for me. But occasionally there's a story that'll call for it. I don't know if this one's it, but I'm just going to do it just to see. I don't know any other way to say it other than some crazy shit was going on that night. Alright, let me fix the spelling there. Crazy stuff going on that night, and I seemed to be the only one who really noticed. My wife Beth and both kids, Julia and Tommy, were sick. Let's make this a different paragraph from the first one. We'll just let that first sentence stand on its own. My wife Beth and both kids, Julia and Tommy, were sick. That's usually enough to get me out of parties, especially ones I don't want to go to. Alright. Especially ones I don't want to go to. Hell, we've lied about the kids being sick just for that reason. There was going to be a lot of family there. Older family. So not bringing illness in the house should have been a perfect excuse. They had food poisoning from something they ate that I didn't. I can't pass that on, but everyone would have understood. I guess I'm going on about this because I so desperately wish I had never gone to that party that night. My wife works for her uncle, who lives a couple doors down from us. There is a golf course he owns on the other side of the street from our nice big lots. Behind our houses. Okay, hold on, I'm sorry. behind our houses, just through the trees, is the river. This is prime property. Her uncle okay, what am I doing here? Rex Dole the Third. No, that's not what I'm trying to do. Yes, her uncle Rex Dole the Third owns the course, holds the mortgage to our house that we pay him in cash, and he owns a lot of the surrounding land and town. Beth wanted me to make an appearance and offer my apologies for her. Problem was that it was a dinner party with several courses, with conversation and mingling and such between. Once I was there for the haul. It wasn't so bad at first. I strolled in. Everyone was greeting and joking and drinking, of course. Neighborhood folks were there. I like a few of them. Uncle Rex's business friends were there. I like a couple of them and can avoid the rest. Then other family filled out the room along with their kids. I like my kids. I don't much care for other people's kids. My family and her family, let's say it would be her family because it's her uncle. Beth's family, I like in small doses and not all at once. But I was there, so I circulated the crowd and nodded through droning conversations. Each time I got bored, I pointed to to someone across the room who wasn't even looking at me, and I excused myself to start the cycle over again with someone else. All right. Let's see, glass broke outside. It turned out to be 3 full wine bottles. I guess it was turning, say, outside on the patio, on the sprawling flagstone patio overlooking the river. Okay, so we've kind of established this place. We kind of established he doesn't want to be here. We've established there's a lot of people. I guess it was turning into that kind of party. Then I saw him, and my whole night changed. I swear to God that I thought Mitchell Creek was dead. But there he was, actually cradling a guitar as he talked to a few other neighbors, not quite as old as him, but real close. I just stared. Let me make that a new paragraph. I just stared. Someone stopped by me, touched my arm, and carried on a whole conversation by themselves as I nodded, grunted, and tried to figure out why no one else thought it was weird that a dead man had joined the party. My wife hates it when I just say yeah. I just say yeah and okay in the right spots while she's talking. Whoever had my arm didn't seem to notice as I tried to put the pieces together. I almost texted Beth to ask if Mitchell had died. I guess I'm doing 2 L's there. If Mitchell had died. They all... Okay. The neighborhood old folks did golf on Tuesdays and Thursdays, followed by afternoon drinking. Mitchell was wearing his golf shirt and had that leathery old man tan going. Okay, I tried to fit the pieces of what I remembered. So I almost detected Beth after Mitchell had died. She was sick, so I decided to leave her out of it. Alright, what are we going to do here? Okay, I tried to fit the pieces together about what I remembered. I remembered him going to the emergency room that last time because I cut my leg pretty bad working in the yard, and Beth drove me to the hospital right past Mitchell's house, where his wife stood outside as they loaded him into the ambulance that took him away forever. I remembered a conversation with Rex. And I remembered a conversation with Rex. Okay. I remembered a conversation with Rex where he said that when they tried to save Mitchell, his arteries and heart had been as hard as a rock in some places, but thin as paper in others. It was a wonder he lived that long. They took up a collection for his wife. Beth and I put in a little. They were working on a fountain in the pond out by the 18th green as a memorial. Mitchell put down, okay, I spelled this guy's name different ways, so I need to pick one. I think I'm doing it with two L's, so let's keep it that way. Mitchell put down the guitar, and I heard him complain about the neighbor's grass being too high. That sounded like him. Didn't sound like something a dead guy would say. I almost grabbed Rex's arm as he patted my shoulder and kept walking. But what the hell was I supposed to say? Isn't that guy over there complaining about the neighbors like old times supposed to be dead? There was no one I could talk to about this. Maybe I could ask Mitchell himself. Hell, he might get a kick out of it. The idea of looking into his eyes after I saw him loaded into the ambulance. The idea of looking into his eyes after I saw him loaded into the ambulance filled me with ice water. Maybe it was Michael. I muttered out loud. Okay, that made more sense. Michael was old as hell too. He lived around the corner from us. Maybe I was confused about which old dude everyone had been talking about dying. That would have been embarrassing if I'd said something. All right. We all sat down at various tables around the house. Not everyone in the same room. Mitchell and his wife sat at the far end of the table assigned to me. I'll say the table I got sat at. Across from me were my wife's cousin, her husband, and their kids, Ashley and Freddie. I hadn't seen them for years. But their little kids looked. Okay, I'm trying to word something here so I don't mess up something later in the story. Let me go back. We all sat down at various tables around the house, not everyone in the same room. Mitchell and his wife sat at the far end of the table I got sat at. Let's say across from me were my wife's cousin, her husband, and their kids. Let's say they're little kids. Their little kids, Ashley and Freddie. I hadn't seen them for years, but they looked great. Ashley could barely see up over the table, but she was well behaved. A nice reprieve from most of the kids running around the house. I remembered years ago at that last reunion we were both at, that Freddie pushed his little sister into the water, and I had to fish her out. Okay, so we'll leave that there and bring it back later. I was still spooked by my misidentification of who had died. My eyes kept drifting to the other end of the table as I nodded through the conversations around me. The food was a little rich for me, but I got through it. As we started to get up for a break between courses, all the strength went out of my legs. All right. Mitchell was going on about mailbox keys. He worked with the homeowners association on that bit. People didn't like dealing with him on lost keys. All right. I couldn't stand because my heart was racing again. It was Mitchell who died. I knew it. That memorial fountain. that memorial fountain. That memorial fountain was across from his house, so his widow could see it. The same widow who was on his arm right then as he went on about the damn mailbox keys. I tried to think it through. Maybe this was Michael. I was confusing him for Mitchell because their names were alike and they were both men in their mid to late 80s. Maybe I had confused their names with each other the whole time I lived here. That wouldn't be great, but better than a dead man walking around with only me noticing. That did look like Mitchell's wife, though. I found somewhere else to go in the house. And I found somewhere else to go in the house and somewhere else to sit for the next course. I started drinking a little more than I tended to on a typical night. As we dug into some meat and potatoes this time, I froze mid-bite. It wasn't Mitchell this time. Although he was not far from my mind, Ashley and Freddie had still been little kids. I just saw them earlier and didn't piece together. Alright, let me fix something real quick. I hit the wrong key. I didn't piece together that they were still the same age as the last time I saw them years ago. The girl's hair was different. And Freddie seemed calmer, which gave him the appearance of being older. But they hadn't aged a day. Let me scroll up here a bit. I could see the parents not looking all that much older. Some folks can still look young, going from their 20s to their 30s. Not me, but some people. Kids change a lot, though, especially when they are young. How long had it been? I wanted to say 5 years, but I think it was closer to 7 or 8 years since I pulled that little girl out of the pool. Can't be, I said. It just can't be. Maybe it was 2 or 3. Maybe it was 2 or 3. That still didn't make a lot of sense, but it would be better. I sat there with my fork hovering over my plate, trying to put together a timeline. We took that trip when we still lived in another state. That was 5 years minimum. Probably closer to 8, I said. All right. Someone stopped us all to give a toast. It sounded like Uncle Rex had a bit of a cough. His throat, let's fix that. His throat rumbled as he talked about family, friends, and time spent together. At the end of it, Uncle Rex said, "Thanks, Dad. That was wonderful. Everyone around the table, everyone around the table spoke over one another in agreement. I turned my head in time to see Uncle Rex helping his father, Rex Dole II, back into his wheelchair. Now I couldn't swallow. I knew that guy was dead. I knew it. He used to live in the house that Uncle Rex Dole III. Okay. He used to live in the house that Uncle Rex Dole III rented and then mortgaged to us. The doorways were extra wide for that wheelchair. Alright. The toilets were extra high. Any time I stopped at a bathroom outside my house, I felt like I was falling when I sat down. Our house, okay, let me make a new paragraph here. Our house was built for Uncle Rex's aging parents. His mom had died first, and then Rex the third shortly after from an infection in his leg from a scratch he got golfing. We attended the funeral a month before we moved into the house. There was no denying this. Was Rex III going to come back home with me because he thought it was still his house? If I saw Uncle Rex's mom roll in here next, I might, let me put a comma there, I might die right on the spot myself. Of course, at this party, that may not have made any difference. dropped my fork with a clatter, pushed back my chair, and worked my way through the house to the outside patio. A few men, let's say a couple men from Rex. Oh, I messed up here. It's Rex the second. I need to fix some things. Rex the second, because he would be the older one. All right. I'll need to fix a couple things in the edits there. A couple men from Rex's business world stood off to one side smoking. I wandered the other way and tried to draw in as much of the night air as I could. I happened to look through the bright windows and saw Mitchell leaning down to talk to little Ashley and Freddie, two kids that never aged. I'll say two kids that stopped aging almost a decade ago. Sweat broke out on my forehead, and I felt dizzy. Okay. Another voice locked me up cold. I didn't want to turn around because I knew what I would see. But I still told myself I was hearing things. I was making this all up in my head. But I did turn. I had to. Sure enough, the voice matched the face. Greg Dole, my wife's late brother, stood there smoking a cigarette with two of Rex Dole III's business associates. Greg was talking computers and copiers. It's what he did 5 years ago before he died. Beth attended the funeral. Beth attended the funeral. As Beth attended the funeral while I kept the kids with me. That's how she wanted it. But she still got mad about me not being there later. I kept my distance and let her grieve. It was a rough couple of years after we first moved into the house. Hey, thanks for being here. Appreciate you dropping in. All right. It was a rough couple years after we first moved into the house. She hurt badly, and I didn't know how to fix it. Holidays were the worst. She still got sad, but not like before. It made me mad to see him. She was just getting back to normal, and here he stood in this party of dead people. If Beth had come, she would be heartbroken to see him again. Whatever this vision was. I was angry at her brother for coming back from the dead and standing here smoking 2 doors down from his sister, who still wasn't completely over his loss. All right. As I moved back inside, he glanced at me. It was the first of the dead I had seen tonight, who now looked on me directly. For a second, I could tell myself that it was just some guy that looked like Greg. That was the only explanation for any of this. I was losing my mind enough to mistake every apparition I had seen tonight. Then he nodded at me. It had to be him. That was exactly how he nodded. I turned away and stormed back inside. I told myself that anyone could nod that way, but I didn't believe it. I passed Ashley in my wife's cousin's arms. My mind insisted that maybe I didn't save her from that pool. Maybe she died too. It wasn't true, but I felt bile climbing up the back of my throat. I passed Mitchell talking to Rex Dole II in his wheelchair. Mitchell turned toward me and called to my back, "Hey, I have a question. When you have a second." I rushed out the door and down the dark street toward home. Stopping at the end of my driveway, I made a tough choice. I wasn't telling Beth about any of this. I wasn't telling Beth about any of this. Not about her brother. I feared it would trigger something in her, and we'd be back in the depths of those endless dark days from before. And I couldn't tell her, and I couldn't ask her about people I was sure had died. She'd look at me like I was crazy, or she'd tell me that none of those people had died. Either way, talking about it was just inviting the dark magic of that party into my own home. I didn't want whatever evil or whatever delusion was involved to follow me here. So I kept all my fears and all these secrets to myself up until now. I have found an excuse for every single one of Uncle Rex's parties since then. When Beth goes alone with the kids, I fear I will never see them again. When she comes back, I ask if she saw anyone interesting, like your dead brother, I think, but never say out loud. Like your dead brother, I think, but never say out loud. She always says, if you care to know, you should come next time, you homebody. I laugh along, but the truth is that I don't care to know. I don't care to see who might be making a surprise visit, nor who might not have aged even a single day. So I'm telling you, that's why I'm not going to that party tonight. And I want you to keep all of this to yourself.